Hello friends! Today on our channel, we will tell you about the most shocking natural disasters that hit the world on the 4th and 5th of April 2025. From hurricane winds and floods to fires, hail, and even rare encounters with wildlife, nature has shown its power again, and we are ready to share these incredible stories with you. Get ready for a real journey through the epicenters of natural disasters. Let's go! Let's start with Russia, with the city of Kansk in the Krasnoyarsk region. On April 5th, a real weather drama unfolded here. A strong wind, the speed of which reached 33 meters per second, literally blew off the roof of the former tax service building. This building, which had been empty for a long time, became a victim of a hurricane that spared nothing in its path. Imagine, huge sheets of metal, torn off the roof, flew into the air like feathers and began to circle over the city, threatening everything that came their way. Local residents who were on the street at that moment filmed what was happening on their phones in horror, not believing their eyes. The wind was so powerful that it tore off not only roofs, but also billboards, felled trees, and even turned over parked cars. One of the eyewitnesses said that he saw a metal sheet fly literally 1 meter from his car, and it was truly scary. Fortunately, no one was hurt in this incident, but the tax office building now looks like it's after the apocalypse. The roof is completely destroyed, and the walls have partially collapsed. This incident was just part of a large-scale weather anomaly that covered the entire Krasnoyarsk region, and we will tell you about other events in this region later. Such hurricanes remind us how unpredictable nature can be, and how important it is to be prepared for any of its whims. Perhaps it's worth checking the condition of your roof, or making a plan for action in case of strong winds. This can save not only property, but also lives. Now let's move to the United States of America, to the city of Hardy, Arkansas. Here, on April 5th, the overflowing Spring River caused real chaos. After several days of heavy rains, the river overflowed its banks, and the water rushed at an incredible speed onto the coastal areas. The water level rose so quickly that the city streets literally turned into seething streams in a couple of hours. The houses of local residents were under threat. The water flooded the first floors, washed away everything in its path, including furniture, equipment, and personal belongings. People in a panic tried to save at least the most valuable things, but for many it turned out to be impossible. The elements were too fast. One of the residents of Hardy shared his story. He told how the water rushed into his house through the windows, and he had to climb onto the roof to wait for rescuers. Some areas of the city were completely cut off from the outside world. Roads turned into rivers, and bridges were underwater. Rescue services worked without interruption, evacuating people by boat and even by helicopter. This spill was part of a larger wave of floods that these days hit several states of the United States of America, and we will return to this topic a little later. Residents of Hardy still cannot recover from this catastrophe, and the authorities are counting the losses, which have already amounted to millions of dollars. Floods like this make you wonder, are we ready for such trials? Maybe it's worth finding out in advance where the nearest evacuation points are, or keeping a bag with the most necessary things on hand in case of an emergency. Next, we go to Indonesia, to the PD district of Aceh province. On April 5th, a real storm broke out here. A squall hit the region with such force that locals still remember this day with shivers. The wind speed reached 90 kilometers per hour, and this was enough to tear out trees by the roots, demolish light buildings, and destroy everything in its path. It all started suddenly. The morning was clear and calm, but by midday the sky darkened, and soon the wind began to gain strength. Residents say that they heard the walls crack under the pressure of the elements, and some even saw how their sheds and awnings simply flew into the air. The wind knocked down power lines, leaving thousands of homes without power, toppled utility poles, and ripped roofs off dozens of buildings. One local farmer lost his chicken coop. The wind blew it away along with the birds, and now the man has to start from scratch. People in PD County tried to shelter in their homes, but the elements caught many by surprise. Some ended up on the street. Others tried to save their property. Fortunately, serious casualties were avoided, But the damage was colossal. Local authorities have already begun to count the losses and promise to help the victims, but the region's recovery will take more than 1 month. This incident reminds us how important it is to listen to weather forecasts and not ignore storm warnings. How do you prepare for strong winds? Maybe you should strengthen buildings in advance or remove anything that can fly away from the street. Now let's go to Iraq, to the city of Sorana, located in Kurdistan. On April 5th, residents were hit by a powerful hailstorm, which locals have already dubbed the ice apocalypse. Ice balls the size of a large nut fell from the sky with such force that they pierced the roofs of houses, broke car windows, and destroyed everything that was not covered. The streets of Sorana turned into an ice field. Sidewalks, roads, even trees. Everything was covered with a thick layer of ice. Local residents panicked and hid wherever they could, afraid of getting injured by the falling hail. One eyewitness said that his car, parked in the yard, was literally riddled with hail. The windshield was broken, the hood was covered in dents, and the paint peeled off from the impacts. The agricultural region suffered greatly. Crops that had just begun to grow were completely destroyed. Farmers are desperate because their work is at risk, and the new harvest is now in great doubt. This storm was a real test for Sorana. The hail lasted about 20 minutes, but it was enough to cause serious damage. Local authorities have already begun to assess the scale of the destruction, and residents are trying to put their homes in order, removing ice and debris. This day will remain in the memory of the residents of Sorana for a long time as one of the most terrible in their lives. Hail may not seem so dangerous, but as we can see, it can cause enormous damage. Do you know how to protect your property from hail? For example, you can cover your car in advance or prepare a canopy for vulnerable things. Let's return to Russia, to Khakassia, where a large fire is raging near the city of Krasnoyarsk. The fire has engulfed the steppe, and due to the strong wind, the flames are spreading at an incredible speed. Dry grass has become the perfect fuel for the fire, and soon the steppe has turned into a sea of fire that can be seen from afar. Local residents say that smoke rose into the sky in huge black columns, and the smell of burning was felt even in neighboring settlements located tens of kilometers from the epicenter. Firefighters and rescuers are working at the limit of their strength, trying to localize the fire, but the wind complicates the task, carrying sparks to new areas. One of the firefighters shared that they have to fight not only the fire, but also the weather conditions. The wind constantly changes direction, and this makes extinguishing it almost impossible. Fortunately, the fire has not yet reached residential buildings, but the threat remains real. The authorities have already announced the possible evacuation of nearby villages if the situation gets out of control. Krasnoyarsk residents are anxiously following the news, praying that the wind will die down and firefighters will be able to cope with the elements. This fire has become another reminder of how dangerous nature can be, especially in dry and windy weather. Fires in the steppe can start from the slightest spark, and this makes you wonder, how careful are we ourselves? Let's always remember the rules of fire safety, especially in dry weather, and not leave fires or cigarettes unattended. Another fire disaster occurred in the village of Irsha in Krasnoyarsk Krai. Here, due to strong winds and dry weather, a fire engulfed several houses at once. It all started with a small fire, which according to locals could have been caused by a spark from a fire or an unextinguished cigarette. But the wind quickly fanned the flames, and the fire spread to neighboring buildings. Wooden houses flared up like matches, and soon several families were left homeless. Local residents tried to fight the fire themselves, pouring water on it from buckets and hoses. But it was useless. The flames spread too quickly. One eyewitness said he saw his house burn down in minutes, and all he had time to do was get his children outside. Rescuers arrived and managed to contain the fire, but by that time several houses had already burned to the ground. Residents of Irsha are in shock. Many have lost everything they had, including documents, clothes, and family heirlooms. Now they have to start life from scratch, and local authorities promise to help the victims by providing temporary housing and financial support. This fire was a tragedy for a small village, but residents have not lost hope and believe that they will be able to rebuild their homes. Stories like these remind us how important it is to be attentive to little things that can lead to big trouble. Let's always check if the fire is out and keep a fire extinguisher at hand. This can save your home and the lives of your loved ones. Let's move to the United States of America, to the city of Frankfort, Kentucky. Here, a flood caused an incredible tragedy. An entire house was washed away by the current. After several days of heavy rains, the water level in the river rose rapidly, and a powerful stream picked up the building, tearing it away from its foundation. Imagine a house in which people had recently lived, floating down the river like a boat, and then starting to fall apart, colliding with trees and other obstacles. The residents of this house, a young family with 2 children, miraculously managed to evacuate a few hours before the water reached a critical level. The father of the family said that they heard a strange noise and saw how the water began to approach their house. Without wasting time, they gathered the children and ran outside, and a few minutes later, their house was already floating down the river. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but their home was completely destroyed. This incident became a vivid example of how dangerous floods can be, especially in regions where rivers overflow their banks. Local authorities have already launched an investigation to understand why the house was so vulnerable to the elements, and promise to strengthen protection measures in the future. This story makes you wonder, how safe is our home? If you live near a river, it may be worth finding out in advance how to strengthen the foundation or where to look for help in case of a flood. Speaking about floods in the United States of America, it is impossible not to mention that on April 4th and 5th, several states were at the mercy of the elements. Heavy rainfall that lasted for several days in a row led to overflowing rivers, flooding roads, and residential areas. In the states of Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and other regions, the situation became critical. Rescuers evacuated hundreds of people, and authorities declared a state of emergency. In some cities, the water rose to the level of the first-floor windows, flooding households and washing away cars. One of the Tennessee residents said that his car was carried away by the current right from the parking lot, and he could do nothing to save it. Roads turned into rivers, bridges were closed, and some areas lost power due to downed lines. Emergency services worked around the clock, using boats, helicopters, and even drones to find and evacuate trapped people. The floods were part of a major weather anomaly that has affected many parts of the United States, and the impact is yet to be assessed. Experts say such floods are becoming more common due to climate change, which raises questions about how best to prepare for similar disasters in the future. Floods may come unexpectedly, but we can be prepared. Always keep an eye on weather forecasts and have an evacuation plan. This can be crucial at a critical moment. Now we head to Brazil, to the city of Angra dos Reis in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Here, on April 5th, massive flooding occurred due to record rainfall. In 48 hours, the region received 338 millimeters of rainfall, an incredible amount that turned streets into raging rivers. Water flooded households, washed away cars, and uprooted trees, leaving chaos in its wake. Residents say they have never seen such a flood. The water rose so quickly that many did not have time to save even the most basic things. One local resident shared that the water rushed into his house through the doors and windows, and he had to climb onto the roof to wait for help. Rescue services worked around the clock, evacuating people from flooded areas on boats and rafts. In some places, the water level reached 2 meters, and entire neighborhoods were underwater. Unfortunately, there were casualties. Several people are missing, and authorities are continuing search operations. Meteorologists explain that such precipitation was the result of a powerful tropical cyclone that hit the region. Angra dos Reis is now trying to recover from this disaster, but the effects of the floods will be felt for a long time. Events like these remind us how important it is to be prepared, especially in areas where rainfall can be catastrophic. Do you have a flood plan? Perhaps you should stock up on food and water, or find out where the nearest shelters are. Next, we go to Mexico, to the city of Aldama in the state of Chihuahua. Here, on April 5, 2025, a powerful sandstorm broke out, covering the city like a scene from a disaster movie. A huge wall of dust rose into the air and covered the sky, turning day into night. Visibility dropped to zero, and residents were forced to hide in their houses so as not to suffocate from the sand that penetrated everywhere, into households, cars, even into their eyes. The wind that accompanied the storm tore down signs, broke trees, and clogged car engines with sand. One local resident said his car stalled in the middle of the road and he had to wait out the storm inside while sand pounded the windows. The storm lasted about an hour, but it was enough to leave chaos in its wake. When it died down, the streets of Aldame were covered in a thick layer of sand, and residents began digging out their homes and cars. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but the sandstorm was a serious test for the city. Meteorologists explain that such storms are not uncommon in this region, especially in the spring, when dry soil and strong winds create ideal conditions for such phenomena. Sandstorms can be not only beautiful, but also very dangerous. Do you know how to behave in such a situation? If a storm catches you outside, try to find shelter and protect your face so as not to breathe in the dust. Now let's move to Namibia, where a rare and breathtaking sight was captured on the prairies, the movement of a black mamba. This venomous snake, one of the most dangerous in the world, slithered through the dry grass, and the locals who witnessed it were both thrilled and terrified. The black mamba is known for its incredible speed. It can move at up to 20 kilometers per hour, and its deadly venom, which can kill a person in a matter of hours. The snake that was filmed on the prairies was about 3 meters long, and its black scales glistened in the sun, creating a frightening but mesmerizing sight. One of the witnesses who filmed it said that he tried to keep a safe distance, but he could still feel his heart pounding with fear. Luckily, no one was hurt, and the mamba soon disappeared into the tall grass, leaving people in amazement. This video has become an internet sensation, showing how amazing and dangerous the wild can be. An encounter with a black mamba in the Namibian prairies is a rare event that reminds us that nature is full of surprises. If you go into the wilderness, always be careful and respect its inhabitants. Would you rather see such a snake in real life, or would you rather admire it on screen? And finally, let's return to Russia, where snowfall covered the Moscow and Kaluga regions. In early April, when everyone was already expecting spring warmth, nature decided to present a surprise. Thick snow fell in flakes, covering roads, houses, and trees. The temperature dropped sharply to -3 degrees, and ice formed on the roads, which caused many accidents. Residents of these regions were caught off guard. Many had already put away winter clothes and changed their tires to summer ones, and now they had to urgently take everything back. In the Moscow region, traffic jams stretched for kilometers, and in the Kaluga region, several villages were left without electricity due to wires breaking under the weight of the snow. One of the drivers said that his car got stuck on the highway, and he had to wait for help for several hours until the snowfall subsided. Local authorities sent snow removal equipment to the roads, but the snow was falling so intensely that the cleaning could not keep up with the elements. This snowfall was a real weather surprise, reminding everyone that even in April winter can return, and you need to be prepared for such whims of nature. The weather can change at any moment, and this snowfall is a clear proof of that. Are you ready for such surprises? Maybe you should always keep a warm blanket and a shovel in your car to avoid getting into trouble? These are the incredible events that happened in just 2 days, the 4th and 5th of April, 2025. Nature has once again shown its strength, and we can only admire its power and learn to be prepared for any challenges. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. Which of these events shocked you the most? Write and see you in the next video.